Good morning. It's Friday, June the 19th. I want to share with you a couple of thoughts on Father's Day real quick, and I want to give you a testimony about it in my life, and I want to do that hopefully quickly. I could talk for an hour, but I'm going to try to keep it under 10 minutes. Psalm 18, verse 2 is where I want you to turn. This morning, I want to ask you to pray for Mark Howard, our associational director, and for Tammy. Mark is having some heart issues, and he's been to the doctor this week, and we'll go again next week, and they're evaluating and doing some testing and trying to find what they need to do to treat Mark. So would you please pray for him and Tammy this weekend and throughout next week? That'd be very important to them to pray for them. I want you to look at Psalm 18, verse 2. Here's the verse. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my strength, in whom I will trust. The Father's Day devotion I want to share with you this morning is about my dad. My dad's name was John. He grew up on a farm right before the Great Depression hit. He was born in 1928. He was born in Albany, Louisiana, which is right down in between Baton Rouge and New Orleans on I-12. There's an exit there, the Albany-Springfield exit, and there it has a little marker. It's the Hungarian settlement. The history of our family is that my great-grandparents and others came over from Hungary in the late 1800s, like in the 1890s, and settled here because of the main reason they wanted the freedom to worship God, and they wanted a better life for themselves. So America welcomed them in. They did things right. They did all the things they were supposed to. They were not illegal aliens. So they came in, joined in, started working hard. Dad was born in 28 and grew up on a farm. At the age of 18, he moved to Montgomery, Alabama because he was stationed there in the Air Force at Maxwell Air Force Base. That's how he met Mom in Montgomery after Mom had moved there off of her farm in Florida where she grew up. And that's how the Ballents became Montgomeryans and became Alabamians. And so Dad, as far back as I can remember, it was either his way or the highway. There was no compromise. There was no discussion. He put the law down, and that was it. And he was a very selfish individual. He was rude. He was loud. He was had a bad mouth. He cussed a lot. He yelled a lot. Started smoking at the age of 10, 2 packs a day by the time I remember any of it. And in 1961 and after, I was born in 61. And he was drinking. I don't know what time he picked up in his life the drinking thing, but by the time I was in my teenage years, he was drinking 7 days a week. And that was very bad. So that was my dad before he met Jesus. Dad's name is John. The name John means God is gracious. And I can tell you Psalm 18:2 was very true in his life. And the fact that he was gracious is what I remember the most about his life right now. In 1990, the week before Father's Day, Dad was hospitalized because he was in a stupor, is what the doctor called it. But it was a coma. But he could open his eyes, but just nothing was there. You know, you've heard the saying, the lights are on, but nobody's home. That was what we found. And we sat in the ICU area for almost a week, praying and waiting on Dad to wake up. They were doing everything they could to try get him to come out of this stupor that he was in. And he has no remembrance of any of this, or he had no remembrance of it. But I think it was on Thursday night going into Friday. It was about 11:30, and the nurse came out there and told me that there's been no change. There's been no change in 4 days. The nurse said, "Why don't you go home and get some rest? You look like you need it." So I went home, and by the time I got home, that same nurse was calling me on the phone and saying, "Hey, your dad woke up, and he needs to talk to you. So can you come back over here?" And at the time, I didn't know where Mom was. She didn't go home that night for some reason. I don't remember why. But Don had to go back to Georgia to work, so it was all on me. So I went back to the hospital, found Dad agitated, but not cussing or anything. He was just agitated. Why am I here? He's asking questions, and he seemed different. Something was different about him. And so I sat there until about 4 or 4:30 in the morning trying to calm him down, and finally got him calmed down enough that he let me go home and take a nap. As I was going out the door, he said, "Wait a minute, boy, I got something to ask you." "Yes, sir." I walked back to his bedside, and he said, "Bring me a Bible." I had that look, like I was about to drop my teeth. I said, "Excuse me, sir?" And he said, "Bring me a Bible." You heard me. I said, "Why do you want a Bible?" I said, "I got 3 in the car. Why don't I just bring you one of those?" He said, "No, I want the one." And he named the one at the house that he wanted. I knew where it was at. And he said, "I want the Bible. I want to read it." Okay. Up to that point, we'd been praying for him. We had witnessed to him. We had tried to get him to attend church. Nothing. And I was 29, about turned 30 that year. Or no, I was about to turn 29 that year. I was 28 going on 29. And for my 28 years, Dad never showed any interest in God. So I brought him a Bible from home. That weekend was Father's Day. We decided as a family to give him his own Bible for Father's Day. And this is it right here. You'll see his name down at the bottom, John S. Balint. God is gracious to him. This is the Bible as he left it. He left his name marker, that one, Psalm 18, verse 2. He left it in 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter. And this is his Bible as we found it after he passed away. It's got church bulletins in it and things of that nature. After he got a hold of the Bible, he started reading and he gave his heart to Jesus. My dad changed in June of 1990. From June of 1990 until August of 98, when God took him home, I had a dad finally. My dad, I don't know how he did it with Don, but with me, I played football, basketball, baseball, and tennis growing up. He never saw a football game. He never saw a baseball game. He never saw me play tennis. He came to one basketball game when I was in elementary school. He came to one basketball game when I was in junior high school, and he came to one basketball game with Don in high school. That was the only 3 times he saw me outside the house doing anything. And up until 1990, he thought it was kind of silly and stupid to be bouncing a ball or chasing the balls, as he called it. But in 1990, he changed. He became a dad. I had a dad for 8 years. That's 8 years longer than some people have, but not as long as other people. But my dad left a legacy of God's grace in his life. That after all that time of smoking and drinking and partying and rude behavior and all those things, his sins were forgiven. His sins were forgiven. And he surrendered to Christ, and the blood of Christ covered his sin. And when he passed away, he went to heaven. We have no doubt. So I just ask you on this Father's Day weekend, if your father's still around, will you please spend time with him? Will you tell him, I love you? Will you do all those things you should do as a child to your mom and your dad this weekend if they're still here? If they've already gone on into eternity, will you thank God for them because they gave you life? If that was the only thing they gave you enough. But I'm very grateful for my dad, and I love him more today than I did the day he passed away or even the day I was born, because I've grown to appreciate what he went through. I've grown to appreciate what he became after 1990. He became a Christian. He became a servant of Jesus Christ. I watched him a couple of times in church greet people as they came to worship. I watched him serve them coffee. I watched them serve them donuts and things. I watched little kids come up to him and call him Pop in the church. And, it was just a blessing. So I know Jesus changed him because he was reading his Bible every day. He was praying every day. He was serving Christ and worshiping on Sunday and on Wednesdays when he could go. And my dad was changed by the power of the gospel because God is gracious. I thank God today that my God that I serve reached down from heaven and showed his grace to John S. Balint Jr. and saved him. I hope you have a great Father's Day. Appreciate your parents. Take care of yourself. We are looking forward to seeing you Sunday, and I hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you Sunday if you can be here.